Hello everybody, welcome back to the Jonathan Greenwood YouTube channel. What a week it has been on Tyneside. We keep saying this since I last spoke to you. We drew against Aston Villa. Alexander Isak wanted to leave Newcastle United to go to Liverpool. Has much changed? Isak still wants to go. Newcastle couldn't get over the line against Liverpool, and what a performance they put in. But they could have just done with a striker. We keep saying that. That was the title of my first video on the channel. And now we're in a situation that the striker hunt for Newcastle United isn't going anywhere at all. It is an absolute mess. If you look at the transfer window right now, in terms of what the hierarchy have delivered so far, there is that big, massive hole. And you look at the other players that they've brought in the positions that Newcastle have targeted, you would be quite happy with the players if you said Alexander Isak wants to stay at Newcastle United. If Isak was to stay at Newcastle United and you bring in a Callum Wilson replacement, whether that be Jorgen, Strand, Larsen or Yoane, Wissa, which we'll talk about in a second, you would go, yeah, solid transfer window. And that's what Newcastle United were hoping for. Now we're scrambling around and people just don't want to do business with us. I've just thought, we haven't got time to react if a club makes an offer, and you can't blame them, because I think Newcastle United would probably say exactly the same thing. But where are we at right now? As we stand at Thursday lunchtime, Newcastle United are still trying to do a deal for Jorgen Strand Larsen. Strand Larsen has told Wolves that he would like to leave and join Newcastle, but Wolves have basically said, we haven't got time. We haven't got time to get a replacement. And you look at it and you go, well, can you blame them? And £60 million for Jorgen Strand Larsen. I think he's a good Premier League footballer, but £60 million is a heck of a lot of money, and I wouldn't be using it. If I was the club, I'd be saying that we're not doing 60 million. And I know it might have to do that to get over the line because we're that desperate. But £60 million for a Premier League player that has had one good season or one half good season, if we're being really honest, because Wolves, let's be honest, are a team just looking to stay in the division at this moment in time. And then you've got Yoane Wissa on the other hand, that's in his peak of his powers, if we're being really honest, but he's the wrong end of 20, and Newcastle can't get a deal done, and the only team that wants Wissa is Newcastle United. It's bizarre, it's bonkers, and the fact that Newcastle can't get these deals done, is that poor from management, or is it just the market? I'd argue it's probably poor from the hierarchy. I really would, because anyhow, we must be scrambling his head thinking, I need at least one striker to be available for the first game of the season, and that was a Callum Wilson replacement. That should have been one of the first things that Newcastle United did, regardless of Isak threw his toys out the pram or not. The fact that we're still scrambling around now with 4 days left of the window just shows how desperate Newcastle United are. I think Wissa would be a good signing, if I'm being real honest. I think Wissa is a very, very good footballer. But again, he's not going to be ready for the Leeds game if he comes in before then, which is highly unlikely. And then you've got an international break, and then it's Wolves on the horizon, which is ironic because we're linked with Jorgen Strand Larsen. And it is very, very desperate. Very, very desperate. Another name that's been added to the list is Nicholas Jackson. And again, I'm not Nicholas Jackson's biggest fan, but if you look at those three players right now, Jackson, Wissa and Strand Larsen, all three players have their advantages, and all three of them have got their disadvantages for whatever reason. The problem that Newcastle have is that they may have to go for a Nicholas Jackson because he is young and Chelsea want to do a deal. Chelsea are happy for him to let him go. They've got Pedro in, who's started well. They've got Delapin, who I think will do well for Chelsea in time. So they're happy to let Nicholas Jackson go. Are they happy to let him go to Newcastle? I think they probably would be. I think they probably would be happy for him to go to Newcastle. Newcastle could pay the sort of money that Chelsea want for Nicholas Jackson. And then you've got a decision whether to bring in Wissa or Strand Larsen and probably let Isak go, which is so frustrating with the PSR world. My thoughts on Isak right now is I don't want him to go to Liverpool. Out of the three players we've mentioned, if we bring in two, he probably goes. But I'll be doing everything I can behind the scenes just to say, look, the way you've acted is absolutely appalling. Fine him as much as you physically can, but have some sort of agreement in place he can go next year for a deal that's good for the club. That's good for the club, because at the minute, those three players do nothing really for me, if I'm being honest. Wissa's probably the one that only does a little bit because of the fact he's done so well at Brentford. And he had such a good season last year. People talk about Brian and Mbeumo having a fantastic season for Brentford last year, but Wissa was just as good, just as consistent. I think just shy of 20 Premier League goals. So he knows where the back of the net is. And I think he would fit the Eddie Howe style. But Yoane Wissa cannot be your main man for a whole season. Alexander Isak is your main man, whether you like it or not. He has acted like an idiot. And that's being polite about it. But yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting these last 4 days of the transfer window. And then you throw into the fact it's Leeds on Saturday. And Leeds are in a bit of a mess. They lost to Sheffield Wednesday's reserves in the Carabao Cup midweek. Lost heavily to Arsenal, which isn't a shock. But the way they lost was probably one of the things that I think Daniel Farke will look at and go, didn't like the look of that. And it is going to be a tough game for Newcastle. No Tonali, no Joe Linton more likely. Gordon suspended. So it's probably going to be Murphy, Barnes and Alanga. Maybe if Sula starts, who knows? It's going to be really, really interesting. But Newcastle need a win. They need to get a win on the board. If you get 4 points in the first 4 games, considering who you're playing, that's probably about par for Newcastle. If you look at last season, and you forget about the Leeds, because Leeds obviously winning the Premier League last year. Villa away, we lost. Liverpool at home, we drew. So we got a point, so we're kind of no worse off if you look at it comparatively from last season. But it's going to be really, really important. You play like you did for the second half against Liverpool. Newcastle United will comfortably beat Leeds United. But Leeds at Ellen Road, under the lights, is going to be a tricky, tricky test. But yeah, my prediction for the game on Saturday is Leeds United 1, Newcastle United 2. I think Newcastle do get the first win. Don't know how, because I don't know who's going to score the goals, but I think Newcastle will find some way of getting goals and getting all 3 points. Hopefully a positive to a negative summer on Tyneside. But yeah, get your comments in. What did you make of the transfer window so far? What did you make of the Liverpool game? I thought it was a really, really good effort by the players. Gordon, it's a red card, really, really poor. But what a spirited comeback from Newcastle. It's just a shame that that extra man cost us with the goal, because obviously Livermento's had to go into a different position and has the massive space for the 16-year-old wonder kid, which name I'm not going to pronounce because I don't know how to. I just know his first name's called Rio. But hey-ho. Yeah, get your predictions in for the Leeds game. Like and subscribe to the Jonathan Greenwood YouTube channel. And we'll see you all very soon.